pushed me, two skirts, one short, one long as the bottom of a gown, and I...
When The Way We Were exploded into theaters in 1973, it wasn't just a film. It was a cultural phenomenon. Robert Redford and Barbra Streisand's undeniable magnetism blurred the line between performance and passion, sparking a frenzy of speculation that their on-screen fire had spilled dangerously into real life. Hollywood insiders whispered of obsession, of a love affair so intense it threatened to derail careers. Redford, the golden boy of American cinema, and Streisand, the powerhouse songbird turned actress, became entangled in a myth of their own making, one that fans believed was destined to end in tragedy. So when the world was rocked by news of Redford's shocking death at 89, it felt like the final curtain call on an untold chapter of Hollywood's most haunting love story. The shockwaves rattled not just film buffs, but entire generations who grew up believing in that timeless chemistry. All eyes turned to Streisand, the woman many still suspected carried Redford's secret in her heart. But she remained silent, fueling rumors of heartbreak, guilt, and unspoken truths too dangerous to ever surface. For days, her silence was deafening. Fans grew restless, anxious, desperate for a sign. And now, at last, that silence has shattered. Streisand's words have emerged, raw, stunning, and laced with revelations no one could have predicted. What she revealed has left the world shaken, and many are saying this is not the ending they were prepared for. Robert Redford, from small-town boy to Hollywood icon, wasn't just an actor. He was Hollywood royalty, a man whose presence could dominate a screen before he even opened his mouth. From Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to The Sting, and his searing turn opposite Barbra Streisand in The Way We Were, Redford built a legacy that cemented him among the greats. But before the fame, the accolades, and the golden hair that became a generational emblem, he was Charles Robert Redford Jr., a restless boy from Santa Monica with ambitions far bigger than the modest life he was born into. Born August 18, 1936, to Martha and Charles Redford Sr., his bloodline traced back to Irish, Scottish, and English immigrants who arrived in New York in the 1800s. They brought with them a grit that would resurface in Redford himself. But it was his mother, Martha, who defined him most. Warm, protective, and endlessly supportive of his artistic streak. When she died suddenly in 1955 at just 40, the blow nearly destroyed him. Redford never fully recovered, often admitting her death haunted his view of love, family, and purpose. Raised in Van Nuys with summers spent in Texas under his grandfather's wide skies, Redford found a bond with the land that would shape his activism. Yet he was no model student. At Van Nuys High, he was the bad kid, more focused on art and sports than academics, practicing tennis with Pancho Gonzalez, defying polio at 11, and pushing himself with a stubborn will. By 1954, he graduated, landing at the University of Colorado. But drinking and recklessness cost him his scholarship and his place. What seemed like failure became reinvention. Redford fled to Europe, painting and drifting across France, Spain, and Italy, chasing art and excess. The hunger to create pulled him back to New York, where he studied at Pratt Institute and the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. By 1959, the rebellious son of Santa Monica had reforged himself in Manhattan, not just as an artist, but as the legend Hollywood would soon claim. Before Robert Redford became the golden face of Hollywood, before Sundance and the festival that bore his name, he was a hustling young actor in New York, scraping by in an industry that wasn't exactly waiting for him. Fame didn't come overnight. It began on Broadway in 1959 with Tall Story, a minor role barely noticed, followed by The Highest Tree and Sunday in New York. The real breakthrough came in 1963 when he starred opposite Elizabeth Ashley in Neil Simon's Barefoot in the Park. Overnight, Redford wasn't just another actor. He was a sensation, branded as someone destined for greatness. While Broadway gave him prestige, television became his boot camp. From 1960 onward, his face was everywhere. Maverick, Naked City, The Untouchables, The Americans, Perry Mason, Alfred Hitchcock. Presents, The Twilight Zone, Dr. Kildare, The Virginian. In 1962, he earned an Emmy nomination for the voice of Charlie Pont, cementing his credibility. That same year, he landed his second film role in War Hunt, then shared the screen with Alec Guinness in the black comedy Situation Hopeless But Not Serious. By 1965, he'd claimed a Golden Globe for Inside Daisy Clover, playing a troubled star opposite Natalie Wood, a pairing so magnetic they reunited a year later in This Property is Condemned with Charles Bronson. By the mid-60s, Redford's rise was undeniable. He worked alongside Jane Fonda in The Chase, directed by Arthur Penn and featuring Marlon Brando, their only time together on screen, a symbolic clash of eras. Redford and Fonda's chemistry carried into Barefoot in the Park, 1967, a massive hit that solidified his stardom. Their on-screen spark would last decades, resurfacing in The Electric Horseman and even Netflix's Our Souls at Night. But Hollywood's golden boy wasn't comfortable. Offers poured in, The Graduate, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but Redford turned them down, refusing to be reduced to a handsome stereotype. His gamble paid off in 1969 with Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid opposite Paul Newman. Redford's sardonic Sundance Kid made him not just a star, but a bankable icon. A BAFTA win confirmed it, alongside acclaim for Downhill Racer and Tell Them Willie Boy is Here. Then came his unstoppable streak. Jeremiah Johnson in 1972 built momentum, but The Way We Were in 1973 opposite Barbra Streisand was the turning point. Their chemistry was so electric, fans swore it was real, and controversy has lingered ever since. That same year, he reunited with Newman in The Sting, a cultural phenomenon that topped the box office and won him his only Oscar nomination. In 1974, The Great Gatsby kept his winning streak alive, while re-releases of Butch Cassidy pushed him into a league no actor had reached since Bing Crosby. By 1976, exhibitors had named him Hollywood's #1 star 3 years straight. Robert Redford had conquered Hollywood. But behind the glitter of box office dominance lay a secret truth. He never even wanted to star in The Way We Were. And if he'd had his way, one of Hollywood's most iconic love stories and his own legend might never have existed. It's almost unthinkable now, but The Way We Were nearly collapsed before it began. Redford thought the character of Hubble Gardner was shallow, underwritten, and little more than a prop for Katie's story. Streisand admitted he was right. She begged director Sidney Pollack to rework the role. Writers were brought in, money was added, the script was toughened. Still, Redford said no. Only after relentless pressure did he agree, and his resistance ironically saved the film. The rewrites gave the romance its bite, and when it premiered in 1973, the result was staggering. 6 Oscar nominations, a win for its iconic score, and Streisand's title song, 2 Grammys, a Golden Globe, and a legacy defined by chemistry that felt dangerously real. But Redford's real-life love story was shaped not by co-stars, but by women who changed him off-screen. He met historian Lola Van Wagenen in the late 1950s and married her in 1958. Their first son died in infancy, a loss that haunted them. They raised 3 more children, but fame took its toll. They divorced in 1985 after 27 years. Post-divorce, Redford kept relationships quiet until meeting Sibylle Sagers in 1996, a German multimedia artist who wasn't dazzled by fame. They married in 2009 and remained partners in art and activism. Together, they endured triumphs and heartbreak, including the loss of his son James in 2020. On screen, his chemistry with Streisand, Fonda, and others continued to fuel speculation. Streisand was infatuated with him. Jane Fonda said he never liked kissing, and Meryl Streep confessed to a crush during Out of Africa. Despite behind-the-scenes friction, they remembered him with warmth and admiration. When Redford died, one question loomed: what would Streisand say? After days of silence, she finally broke it. On Instagram, she called him charismatic, intelligent, and one of the finest actors she had ever worked with. She remembered their last lunch. No talk of fame, only art, and a promise to exchange drawings. Simple, human, intimate. And with that memory, the myth that had hovered for decades was made real. A love story that may never have been spoken aloud, but one that lives forever in the moments they shared, and the film that changed everything. But for fans and film historians alike, Streisand's tribute did more than just honor a co-star. It opened a rare window into a connection so often speculated about, yet so tightly guarded. For 50 years, the emotional weight of The Way We Were rested, not just in its iconic scenes or award-winning score, but in the eyes of its stars, in the tension between every touch, every glance. It was the kind of chemistry you can't fake, the kind that transcends lines on a page. And now, in her own quiet way, Streisand had confirmed what so many believed all along. There was something deeply real between them. Their dynamic, both on and off set, was a dance of opposites. He was measured, introspective, a man who chose words carefully and kept most of his truths to himself. She, bold and expressive, spoke with her entire being, unafraid of vulnerability or confrontation. Together, they formed a tension that played out scene by scene, moment by moment, building a story that didn't feel like acting, but like life unfolding in front of the lens. Redford once said that the beauty of great performances lies in what's not said, what hangs in the silence. And with Streisand, those silences were deafening. Even after the cameras stopped rolling, the fascination with their pairing never waned. Redford rarely spoke publicly about the film. He rarely spoke about Streisand at all. And perhaps that silence, that restraint, only added fuel to the fire. She was more open, more willing to revisit that chapter of her life. But even she treaded lightly. Until now. In this final tribute, the carefully drawn lines between fiction and reality blurred for good. What moved so many wasn't just what Streisand said, it was what she didn't. She never once used the word love, yet it pulsed beneath every sentence. She didn't recount romantic gestures or behind-the-scenes passion. Instead, she spoke of art, of drawings, of a lunch that on paper might seem forgettable. But to her, and clearly to him, it wasn't. It was something more. The simplicity of it was the point. After decades in the spotlight, after lifetimes of fame, it wasn't red carpets or grand declarations that defined them. It was a quiet moment, the shared stillness between two people who had known the weight of myth and the cost of connection. And perhaps that's what has made their story linger for so long in the public imagination. Because it was never fully given to us. It was never tabloid fodder or gossip column chaos. It was never confirmed nor denied. It was, like the best kinds of love, left unfinished, left for the audience to interpret, left for each person to decide what they believed. Streisand's words didn't settle the debate. They deepened it. The film itself, The Way We Were, remains a touchstone for love stories that don't end neatly, that defy the Hollywood formula. In it, Redford's Hubble walks away. Streisand's Katie, brave and broken, lets him. The final scene, her brushing his hair from his face, their final exchange, has become a symbol of every love that could not survive the real world but refused to disappear entirely. It mirrored what many felt about Redford and Streisand in real life, that their connection, whatever shape it took, was too complex, too fragile, too real to last. Over the years, Redford was asked again and again about Streisand, about the rumors. He always deflected. He praised her talent, her strength, her brilliance. But he never cracked open the door, never offered more than necessary. Some say it was out of respect. Others believe it was a kind of protection, for her, for himself, or maybe for something sacred they didn't want the world to dissect. And now, with his passing, that choice feels like a final act of grace. Streisand could finally speak because he no longer had to. Her tribute also revealed a different side of Redford, the artist, the man who wanted to exchange drawings, who didn't want to talk about box office numbers or critical acclaim, but about sketching, about light and line and color. It reminded fans that before he was a movie star, he was a painter, a dreamer with ink-stained fingers and a stubborn vision. And perhaps it was in that space, between art and memory, that he and Streisand found common ground. Their last lunch, which Streisand described with such reverence, wasn't just a memory. It was a closing chapter. A quiet goodbye neither of them knew would be final. And in remembering it, she gave fans not just closure, but a gift. The permission to believe that sometimes, even the most fleeting connections leave permanent marks. Fans from around the world responded with an outpouring of emotion. Comment sections filled with broken hearts, thank yous, and stories of how The Way We Were had changed their lives. For some, it was the film that taught them about love's complications. For others, it was the first time they saw themselves on screen, in all their contradictions, their yearning, their vulnerability. And through it all, Streisand and Redford stood as icons of an era when movies didn't just entertain, they imprinted on the soul. Critics often call The Way We Were dated, melodramatic, even messy. But that messiness is what makes it timeless. It isn't polished. It doesn't offer easy answers. It shows two people doing their best, failing each other, and loving anyway. That emotional honesty has allowed it to endure far beyond its 1973 premiere. And now, with Redford's death and Streisand's tribute, the film takes on a new layer of meaning. It is no longer just fiction, it is elegy. In her final words, Streisand didn't perform. She didn't posture. She simply remembered. And in doing so, she reminded the world that the real love stories, the ones that change us, don't always come with declarations or happy endings. Sometimes they are just lunches, promises, a look, a scene that stays with you long after the credits roll. Robert Redford may be gone, but what remains is more than just a legacy of films. It's the echo of a connection that defied definition. It's the chemistry that lit up a screen and left audiences breathless. It's the silence between lines, the drawing never exchanged, the feeling never quite named. And in Streisand's words, we finally saw it clearly, not a confession, but a truth. A truth wrapped in memory, in loss, and in the kind of love that once felt never really fades.